the computer. Okay, so we got about 5 minutes, and then we'll start.
Alex, quick question. What class are you at Hopkins?
I'm a current senior right now, so I'm class of 26.
Okay.
What
Cool. What
class
are
were
you
you?
studying? I'm 2022.
Okay. Yeah, so I came in 2022.
Okay. What are you
Yeah.
studying?
I'm doing a double in CS and econ.
Okay, cool. I said it can be E, so
Yeah. Oh, nice. Okay, so you were whiting.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah. My primary CS, so I'm whiting as well.
Okay. I was
And
about to
then
say, I'm
you're in New
jealous.
York now?
Yeah, I'm in New York now. I have a startup, so that's kind of what I'm doing now. But I'm jealous you have the student center. I have to be honest because I dealt with the construction, but I never saw it. And I saw the images and I'm super jealous.
Yeah, it's pretty nice in there. But I'm not gonna reap all the benefits of it either because I don't think the food that they're supposed to have in there is gonna be ready for like another year. I think they just opened it because it was like they're so behind schedule on everything. You should see the campus now though. It's like two times more construction than when you were there. They
What
they're
what else are they doing?
they're demolishing the library right now, so there's no library. They have a hole in the freshman quad. They're building behind the football field a new dorm, I think.
I
And
know.
then they're and
You're
then this summer they're gonna like tear down the AMRs.
I'm between like 3 or
Wait,
4
so
weeks.
MSC is totally gone?
And then what's been happening? Why?
They're renovating it,
Why?
but it's like
Wow.
they have cranes and everything. It's insane.
What's happening is
Okay, yeah. Okay, never mind. We just had like the student center was the big thing, and then rec center was like getting renovated around the time, so it was like shut
Yeah,
down for like a year.
the rec's really nice. The rec's really
Yeah, the rec
nice.
is great. Like I got to reap at least some of those benefits. Like I did my master's as well, for like an
Yeah.
additional year. But yeah, I feel like compared to what you just described, I feel like it's nothing.
Yeah. Where are you in New York? Where do you live?
So I live in East Williamsburg in Brooklyn, but I my offices are right near Penn Station, so I'm very centrally located.
Nice. I've been in New York the past 2 summers.
Oh, okay, for like internships?
Yeah, and then I'm coming back next year for full time.
Okay. What internships were you doing?
The first one was at an investment bank. I was doing like coding for them. And
Hmm.
then now I'm working in like venture capital, like growth equity.
Having a
Oh,
realistic
okay, cool. So you'll be
Yeah.
deep in the investment banking world.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was gonna say you're the bane of my existence. No offense. As a startup founder, I have to talk to investors all day, and I'm just like, again.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to get in.
Yeah. You guys definitely get sick of us, and I understand.
You probably simultaneously get sick of founders as well, because I feel like the idea of people like constantly pitching at you is probably also just like insufferable. You're like, can I just have a normal conversation that's not you pitching your company at me?
Yeah, the best is like the small talk before you get into any numbers where it's like they're just a normal person and then you get into the company and it's like
You're like, dang, I thought we could be friends.
yeah, well it's because most of the time they just lie about the numbers and it's like I'm gonna find out that it's not real. Um
You're like,
they tell me
I'm gonna do due diligence and I'll look
yeah,
deeper and it'll
yeah,
uncover the entire hood. So like, what's the
yeah, it's
point?
like at a certain point you're gonna send me the data room and the numbers are not gonna line up. So it's like it's whatever. Um
Do you
you
like
can
see
say
that as a
people
red flag? Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say you can just save everyone a lot of time by just being honest.
True. But I guess it's like, how do you get them like hooked on what you're saying, right? It's
There
like
are many
maybe not
ways.
fudging numbers, but I feel like there's other ways of like getting them excited, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's more about like the market and stuff like that if you don't have
Yeah.
revenue or whatever. But yeah, what were you gonna say?
So I was about to say, so if someone comes in and the numbers aren't matching, what are you saying? Are you like red flag, we're not investing out?
No, we usually are like more like passive about it. We'll just be like, oh, like it looks like it's not as comfortable of an investment, like some terminology like that.
Yeah.
We're normally more honest and helpful with people that were honest to us.
Ah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah,
That's,
so it's like if there was someone that was good. Oh, are we ready?
you guys are giving like the people in the pre-call are gonna be getting like a lot of interesting information into like your industry, what you guys do. It's great.
I was
No,
gonna say we're on opposite ends. I'm the one
yeah,
that's pitching to Alex, and
yeah.
Alex is the one that has to hear my pitch. So there's there's already tension there. I feel it in the air, and I was trying. No, I'm joking.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
You got Alex, you are on with a founder right now and an alum. So that's interesting.
Yeah,
Very
it's
interesting.
totally different sectors though.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. With that being said, it just hit 2:10. Everybody, welcome to the third Lost Tape, right? Again, these are interviews we did last year that I saved to Panopto. We're no longer Panopto now, so we lost it. But gratefully and thankfully, we're able to get Alex Shane and Marie Eric, Harvard-Westlake alum, to do Hopkins. And while the first two, we were able to get Eli Goldsmith, our director of advancement, who's a Princeton alum, and Daniel Gutierrez, our director of teaching and learning, who's a Harvard alum, graduate school at Harvard. I chose to do Hopkins because it's in Baltimore. And I grew up learning and loving Hopkins as a Baltimore resident who went to the Gilman Country Day School for Boys, 2 blocks down from Hopkins. Well, like 4 blocks down from Hopkins. So, with that being said, Alex, Marie, I'm going to close the door so we can get a little better noise in here. You guys want to introduce yourselves? Maybe your HW grad year, what you're doing now, and more importantly, I guess at the center of it, when I asked why you decided to say, yes, I'll do this call, Mr. France, because you know I asked.
You want to start it off, Marie?
Go ahead. Go ahead. It's all you.
Okay. Hey guys, I am Alex. I graduated Harvard-Westlake in the class of 2022, so I'm current senior at Johns Hopkins. I'm on the baseball team here, and I'm double majoring in computer science and economics.
Hi, I'm Marie Eric. I graduated Harvard-Westlake class of 2018, graduated Hopkins class of 2022, and then did my master's class of 2023, and it was all in chemical and biomolecular engineering. Now I have a startup, so I'm a CEO and a founder of a sustainable packaging company called Tasty Tape, and we're just making a more sustainable and food safe packaging that is so safe you can eat it. So that's what I'm doing now.
Very, very cool. But both of you ignored the second part of my question. Why did you decide to do this panel today?
I can do that. I really have enjoyed my time at Hopkins. I think it was the best choice I could have made for myself. I was considering, a lot of different schools, different Ivy League kind of schools for baseball, but ended up going with Hopkins, and I'm really happy with my decision. I think that Hopkins is a great place and somewhere that I think is great even if you don't want to be a doctor, which I think is kind of a misconception about Hopkins that you have to be pre-med. Neither Maria or I were pre-med. Um, and so that's a big reason for like the Hopkins side of things and also just Harvard-Westlake. Um, always want to like help out and give back and stuff because Harvard-Westlake was great to me.
Yeah, I can totally echo that. I think kind of starting with my Harvard-Westlake experience, I was a student on financial aid, and I think because of that, Harvard-Westlake gave a lot and gave me a lot of opportunities that I don't think I was necessarily afforded if it wasn't that. And I think that kind of led to the path that I'm on today, going to Hopkins, and then even after that, what happened with my life. And I think because of that, I owe a lot to the Harvard-Westlake community, and I try to give back. And this is one way that I hope is helpful to students. And I think, maybe on the Hopkins end, I think Hopkins is a great school. I think outside of, like Alex said, the pre-med aspect, which I think is a huge misconception, there's so many other really fantastic programs that people don't really discuss. And I think we're here to uncover some of that. And there's also truths that, it's helpful to students to understand maybe the not so discussed parts of going to Hopkins that maybe are outside of the misconceptions, but or maybe things that you need to be aware of before you decide that you're going to spend the next 4 or 5 years at a school that I think is important to understand. So as a student that very funny enough, I'd never visited Hopkins before I decided to go there, and I just kind of winged it. And I'm glad, like, I'm a very adaptable person, but I understand that not everyone is that way. And I think it's important to kind of cover your bases and understand exactly what you're walking into. So hoping to alleviate some of that for everyone.
We both hit on some really important concepts that we'll hopefully discuss in this talk, in this panel, and we'll hopefully clear up some of the misconceptions or misnomers when it comes to Hopkins. So let's start with there, right? You both were emphatic, and you're like, we're not pre med, we're not doctors, right? What, but Hopkins obviously world renowned for its medical school and the doctors that it cranks out. So why Hopkins? Why was Hopkins, and why was the school, the major that you chose, why was Hopkins the right fit? So overall, why Hopkins, and then specifically for what you study, why Hopkins?
Yeah, I can start off. I think my path's a little differently just because I have the athletics route. And so athletics definitely played a part in my decision. However, I think that I really wanted to go somewhere that the academics came first and it wasn't necessarily baseball was the deciding factor. And so when thinking about, I came in as just a computer science major. I took all the classes at Harvard-Westlake for it, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. And when thinking about Hopkins, they had a really good computer science program, and you're able to like look at the classes that they offer on their kind of like e-catalog. And so I would advise that for kind of any school you look at, but some of the classes that they had that were kind of electives really stood out to me. And I felt that that was somewhere that I wanted to be, that was teaching curriculum that excited me. And also like now I'm a double major, and I think that that's something that's pretty common at Hopkins is double majoring, and it's really flexible in the terms that you don't have a lot of core classes that you need to take regardless of your major. You don't have to take foreign language. You don't have to take like these history classes or these math classes. You just take classes that you want to take alongside your major, which allows it to be really easy to do a double major, which I found really helpful because I don't like having to take a class that doesn't fit what I want to do.
Yeah, I think to that point, I knew I was a huge STEM person. I think even at Harvard-Westlake, funny enough, I did a lot of CS at Harvard-Westlake. And then I had a realization my senior year. I was like, I do not want to sit at a computer ever again. I do that now, which is sad, but the whole purpose is that I was like, okay, I want to explore engineering as a path for me because I think CS kind of really touches on that and it is also in the School of Engineering. But I was like, okay, I want to do something tangible. So I actually came in as like undecided my first year at Hopkins, but I knew I wanted to explore engineering as an ideal. But I knew, I think simultaneously with that outside, I knew STEM was an area that I really wanted to study and really get into the weeds of. And I think research is always super exciting. And I think Hopkins is one of the world's like most renowned like research institutions. I don't know if Alex can speak to this as well, but I had two different research labs that I ended up working for. I have two published papers to my name. I think there's very few people that can say that. I think at like, finishing college and going through the program. So the amount of research opportunities that are here at Hopkins, I think is something you can't beat. And it's also super accessible. The amount of labs that are available that have something that you're interested in, I think is speaks to the name. And I knew that. And that's why I ended up applying. And I knew that engineering was something I wanted to explore a little bit into. And I think Hopkins has a really great school of engineering. They're known for their biomedical engineering program. That's kind of their number one in the country for that. I think that they're still number one in the country for that. But, chemical engineering is eventually what I ended up leaning into just because chemical and biomolecular engineering, which is what I ended up being drawn to as I was kind of exploring each of the fields through a class called What is Engineering. And I think just because of the research aspect, I think that's really what drew me. But as even from a geographical place, I wanted to leave LA. I wanted to explore. I had 4 years, 5 years to see a different place and experience that. And I'm a person that loves doing that. And I know some people like staying closer to home, but for me, I was like, I want 4 or 5 years to experience a different world. And I think especially the East Coast was super intriguing to me. And I think I think Baltimore really encapsulates that idea of like an East Coast vibe without having to be like totally drowned out by being in a city, which is now I'm in New York City. But I think, inherently it kind of allows people to explore that. And I think there's a certain sense of charm, not to not to be talking about the charm city, but I think there's a certain sense of charm that I think is really endearing. And I think it's a great place to kind of grow as a student. And of course I didn't learn that till going there, but I think it's something that I was willing to take a risk on. And I think I saw a lot of opportunities in it.
I have a smile from my face just ear to ear when I hear young Angelinos like yourselves talk so glowingly about my hometown of Baltimore. It makes me feel good. So let's talk about that. What's it like? What is it like? What's Baltimore like? Was it dangerous? Was it well, we got some questions for somebody. Got it for sure. We'll ask it. Yeah, for sure. Um, I'll ask you, make sure you listen to the recording so you're going to answer for sure. Well, one of our attendees had some really good questions, but he's got to leave for practice. So we'll answer those questions. We'll make sure we get to those. So, but anyway, getting back to it, Baltimore, what was it like?
Yeah, I can start. I mean, I think that there's a lot out there about Baltimore that's probably in a negative light. And I think some of it is definitely warranted. Like, it's not going to be the safest like college you could go to, and that's just like a fact. There's no really hiding from it. However, it's not like you're worried about your safety walking from class to class. The campus is very defined. There's like security on campus at all times. There's security at the dorms. Like if you're within a half-mile radius of campus and off campus, like you're very safe. I think it's just you have to be more careful about when you're going off campus. Once you get out of that half-mile radius, you probably shouldn't be walking at night. You should probably not be alone, especially if you're a girl, or a woman. And it's just kind of like probably want to Uber places versus walk at certain times in the night. However, I think that there's like really nice neighborhoods in Baltimore as well. Like the Inner Harbor is just 15 minutes away and it's super nice. You have the Ravens Stadium is amazing. Camden Yards is amazing. That's the baseball stadium. There's great food in Baltimore, which I didn't know about, but the food's actually really good. Hamden is this cute neighborhood that's right by campus. So like there's a lot of really good stuff. You just have to be mindful to avoid the bad neighborhoods, which are very well known to be bad.
Marie?
Yeah, I think piggybacking off of that, it's just a sense of having street smarts. I think you know where you shouldn't be walking at what hours. Like, just think through it. You live in Los Angeles, you're already kind of aware of that. So I think inherently, like, you acknowledge the fact that like walking alone at night at certain hours in certain neighborhoods is probably not the best idea. And I think Hopkins does a pretty good job at maintaining that sense of safety, I think, which is what Alex described here, is that inherently, like, they have a bunch of shuttle services that really help in making sure if you want to get to certain places on campus, if you want to get to the med campus, which is in a different part of Baltimore, there's shuttles that'll get you there, buses that are pretty safe. Like they take a lot of at least like infrastructure measures to ensure the sense of safety for students. I think that is viewed from a community perspective in a lot of different ways, but I don't think we'll just get into the weeds of that. But I think as a student being at Hopkins, I think inherently like you're safe when you're on campus, you're safe when you're on the various campuses that exist, and they keep you aware at, crimes will happen. You just, play your street smarts. You live in Los Angeles, you know what it's like. So then inherently just like utilize that, and they will take you through a whole walkthrough about what you need to avoid and what you shouldn't. And you just keep that in mind and be smart about it. You're smart kids. So stick to that.
Really well said. I could not concur even more, whether it's Hopkins in Baltimore, whether it's Penn in West Philadelphia, where I went, whether it's Morningside Heights, or why would I like to call Harlem in Columbia. Like all of these places, they're cities, as Alex and Marie just said. Like you all are fortunate enough to have grown up in a city. So you kind of sort of know where to go and where not to go. If their chances are you'll be okay if you're where you're supposed to be. Right. And if you're not, good luck. Use those things that you learned. right? Speaking of coming from the city, this is always interesting when I ask Harvard-Westlake alum this question, because not only are you all from LA, you went to Harvard-Westlake, which is like an extremely diverse school. What's the diversity like at Hopkins, right? And I'm not just talking about race, gender, ethnicity. I'm talking about overall. It's a lacrosse school, Alex. How's the baseball team treated? Right?
Yeah.
Both of you guys are not injured, are not in medicine, but you're at a school world renowned for medicine. Where do you fit? What's your group? What's your tribe? What is talk to me? What's hot?
Yeah, I think it's a very diverse community, and it's like in many different ways. I would say that unlike a lot of places, being white is probably a pretty heavy minority at Hopkins. You have people from probably close to 100 countries, if not more, in each class. So you definitely get to meet people from a wide variety of backgrounds, which I think is very interesting. And then, like you said, you don't just have pre-meds that go to Hopkins. You have people doing all different types of majors. And I still learn about new majors all the time. I didn't know that you could major in Spanish, and one of our freshmen is majoring in Spanish. So there's like not a shortage of opportunity or diversity at Hopkins, I would say, in terms of just like people, opportunities. The lacrosse joke is kind of funny, but they're not so good anymore.
They
But
aren't. It's true.
but we're a very good athletic school though, especially with the D3 sports, and that's a big kind of culture point. Our football team is like nationally ranked every year. They're number 3 in the country right now. Our baseball team's been number 1 in the country the last 3 years, and so a lot of students, even that aren't athletes, will come out to games and support. And that's part of the campus, which even though it's not, an SEC school or something, you still get a little bit of school spirit, which I think is good for a school as well.
Yeah, I think, I love mentioning this kind of, it's not like a stat, but like there are more international students in the grad programs than there are like students that are from like like North American region, which I think is like so amazing. And I think that speaks to like the diversity of just like students that exist on the campus. But I think even outside of that, like from a major perspective, like IS, international studies, is like one of the most well recognized, and it being Baltimore right next to DC, like such a fantastic place to study poli-sci and international studies and dive into that series of programs. And I know it's a fantastic program, and I know people that were writing seminars majors. So like even humanities exists, and it's also like a major, even though Alex and I can't speak that much to it, it's well recognized, and I think people are studying that. And I think on the sense of just like extracurriculars, like I was a part of a hip hop dance team at Hopkins. And, that ultimately like expanded me to talk to a whole bunch of like dance teams in the DMV area. And we would run like a showcase every year. That was a benefit also. That would bring in like all these amazing like hip hop dance teams in the local area. And like that's how you like bridge connection and like the sense of community outside of even Hopkins, right? So I think, extracurriculars is not just pre-med, it's not just even like athletes too, which I think Hopkins does a fantastic job of like bridging the idea that like students first, athletes second, but like they're really good athletes in their D3 programs respectively. As like Alex mentioned, like I had friends that were on the football team, and I think they like did fantastic jobs, and they really, you can sense their sense, like they had passion about the sport, right? And I think that speaks to the diversity of what Hopkins exists. I think you will inherently need a lot of STEM majors, and I think that is maybe like tends to be highlighted. But I think there are other people that are there that are doing cool things that are outside of that. And I think research is also typically a common threshold, but I think research spans even outside of STEM majors. There's a lot of humanities research, and I met, public health majors, and public health is also, I don't know how we didn't mention this, public health has a fantastic program at Hopkins.
Yeah, it's like the
So
number 1 school in the world. Yeah.
exactly. So like we have a lot of schools that we are not even mentioning that I think you need to learn about the programs if that's what you're interested in. It's not pre-med. Like that is not pre-med. It's not one like racial group. Like it is everything. And I think that people don't discuss that enough.
Absolutely. That was pretty substantive, guys. Moving on to the next one. And you may require some memory, particularly on your part, Marie, as our elder alum. I want you to think about your summers. What'd you do summer after freshman, sophomore, and junior year at Hopkins?
I can go first. After my freshman year at Hopkins, I came home back to LA and I played in a local summer baseball league, which was really fun. And then I did some part-time work for a family friend, which was a very informal, I guess you can call it an internship, which was just to kind of get something on my resume, but not formal at all. There was no application or anything. And I think that as much as you can, try to enjoy your freshman summer. I don't think there's any expectation from any employer that you will work that summer. So I would say just try to enjoy that. And then sophomore summer, I was in New York City working for Jefferies, which is an investment bank. I was doing some like quantitative trading for them. And then this past summer, I was in New York again, working at a growth equity firm, which is like private equity and venture capital called Lead Edge Capital. And that's where I'll be going after I graduate in the summer.
I was just about to ask, you going to take they extend the offer, and are you going to take it?
Yep,
Looks like
yes
you
to
are.
both. So I'm excited about that.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Marie, you
That's
remember back
that's
that far?
I have to be honest, there's some fuzzy memories, so we'll see how this goes. But also, Alex, glad for you to be joining New York City. But yeah, so my freshman year, I did research and I was also working. So I ended up working at a local like restaurant on campus, Donor Bros. If Alex, you remember, or if they're still around. Yeah. So
No,
I
they're
worked and I
not
was
still
also
around, but it was great.
oh my God, okay. We can need to discuss this later. Um, so I was working like part-time and then also doing research because I was subletting at the time because they didn't have like on-campus housing for summer. So I was at like a new research lab as a freshman, which like I said, going back to this idea of like research being so prevalent and like so easy to access, especially as a freshman where you maybe don't have all the skill sets, like there are people that are willing to take you on and teach you. And then the following summer, COVID hit. And that was me being at home trying to figure out. I think I actually ended up doing a community college orgo class or organic chemistry class because I was like, I need to take advantage of the fact that like eventually I have to take this class and like why not do it at a community college and get the credits for it. So I actually ended up doing that. And then the following 2 years, I just did research. But at that point, I moved to an entirely different lab that was more rooted in what I actually wanted to study, which was biomaterials and regenerative medicine. So figuring out how to use certain materials to help promote healing. Um, so I ended up working at that lab for the next 2 summers. I think the first summer I didn't get paid, but the following summer I did get paid. So that's also something you can vouch for as you kind of gain your skill sets. You can talk to labs to see which ones are willing to pay for you over the summer. I don't know if you can get it during the academic year, but inherently like as a student you have to figure out housing during the summer, so it helps to there's some grants that afford that and you can actually apply for in fellowships. So I ended up doing research. That was my primary gig. And then I guess even the summer after my senior year into kind of my master's, I ended up started working on my company Tasty Tape and ended up doing that primarily as a sense of work. Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna talk about Tasty Tape. You best believe that. Now I'm gonna ask you guys to go back even further, right? And this is for our freshmen, sophomores, and possibly even juniors on the call. Right? These next two questions are: do you remember what you did summer after sophomore and junior year at Harvard-Westlake, entering into Hopkins? Yeah,
Uh,
that's where we're going, Alex. Way back.
I I'm pretty sure my sophomore summer was COVID. COVID hit my sophomore year at Harvard-Westlake. Um, so I didn't do a whole lot. But I was playing baseball a lot. Baseball at Harvard-Westlake, as many of you know, is an all 365-day commitment. Um, but that was the majority of my summer. Um, and then junior year was similar. Uh, that summer after junior going into senior, it was a lot of visiting colleges that were recruiting me for baseball. seeing the campuses, talking with coaches, going to different kind of showcases across the country. Um, so it was really mostly baseball for me, which is probably very different than other people who were probably visiting more campuses. Um, but still just trying to get a sense of, do my values align with these coaches, with these programs? Does if this school wants me for baseball, do they have the classes I want to take, the major that I have? Do they have the alumni network for the field that I potentially want to go into? I think it's hard when you're 15 or 16 to kind of think about your like career trajectory. Um, but it's less important about like how a school is ranked versus can they help you get to where you want to be in your path specifically.
Alum,
And so
Alex.
yeah, and so I would definitely tell you like don't think about rankings. I have friends that go to like no name schools that have much better jobs than people that go to Harvard. It's just about how you apply yourself and how bad you kind of want it and the people that you know.
Well said. Marie?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic point. Like Ivy Leagues don't matter. Like it's a name, but at the end of the day, like it'll provide like the network is what's important and like how you grow your own personal skill set. I think that point is just something I wanted to double down on because I think it's so critical and especially having like graduated and seeing people that, whether it's from Harvard-Westlake or just like people that I knew that went to Hopkins, I think the name is helpful, but it's not everything. And especially as someone who's like now working in the startup ecosystem, network is so critical to like how you just grow, even outside of like getting a job, but like getting internships. So going back to the question. So I'm pretty sure I did two internships. And as I mentioned before, I was primarily doing CS. So I took AP Comp Sci, I did advanced topics. And I think my first I think it was my sophomore summer I did an internship. I think this was actually both of them through HW Works, by the way. Um not intentional promo, but that worked out. So it was originally with a startup that was making I helped make them make their website, and I did some good like I did market research for them into some of their competitors as well as just building out like a version of their website that they could utilize. um and then the summer following that, I ended up doing like marketing research for Mankind Venture Group, and they
Wow.
basically are like a VC. I think that was kind of their trajectory, but we like spent time discussing like STEM and looking into like VC investments in that space. So not totally related, but it was like somehow related to the idea of STEM, and I think maybe that inherently kind of planted the seed for what would for me exploring other spaces and what I could get into. But both of those were internships I'm pretty sure I got through HW Works.
There you go, right? The work we appreciate the works plug, Marie, and I think it's important that we also see that there are many different ways to get to where you want to be, right? Whether it's internship out, researched out, or whether it's, taking the time to really evaluate the choices that you're going to have to make that Alex did. So that's key. We got flooded with student and parent questions. So I'm going to ask my last one, and then you guys are going to have some questions to answer. And this will be poignant for the both of you because you've already, Marie, you completed your Hopkins journey. Alex, yours is winding down this year. Do you think Hopkins, and we'll throw in Harvard-Westlake in here too, because why not? How do you think Hopkins and Harvard-Westlake have done in preparing you for life after Hopkins and Harvard-Westlake, right? Do you feel prepared? Alex, are you scared going to New York? Marie, you're a founder. Like, how have Hopkins and Harvard-Westlake helped you guys out? Have they
Yeah.
helped you out? Hell, maybe they've hurt
No, I think both have been great. I think that both have been very foundational in just shaping me into who I am today. I think Harvard Westlake is probably one of the hardest high schools in the country just to get through. You kind of
you.
just learn by trial through fire. You learn all of the time management skills, and I think all of that really prepares you for when you go into college. I think that Hopkins and pretty much any college is honestly easier in terms of managing your time than Harvard Westlake. Like college, you don't have an assignment due every night. You have like a week to 2 weeks to do a problem set. You can talk with your teachers about questions that you have on these assignments. You have time to do extracurriculars. So I think it's honestly easier, but you still have this kind of time management skill that you've built up at Harvard-Westlake and kind of grit that you've built up through the challenges you've had in high school. And I think that Hopkins is still a challenging school. Like the work is very difficult. But I think that's good because it continues to push you to kind of push yourself out of your comfort zone, take a class, even if you might not get the best grade. Um, like shocker, GPA doesn't matter that much once you get a job. No one will ask about it. Um, but I would say that both have set me up really well just in terms of challenging me and pushing me to be the best version of myself.
Yeah, I think echoing off of that, I think coming out of Harvard-Westlake and Hopkins, like that duo, you are probably going to be one of the most like academically like set up student like in the nation, genuinely. Like I think Harvard-Westlake is a difficult school. Like you, like Alex was discussing, like there's time management, you face a lot of challenges academically and you learn how to get through that. And then Hopkins has a kind of similar set. Like sometimes it feels up to par with what you see at Harvard Westlake, and there's times where it's more. Especially, I went through a chemical biomolecular engineering program.
Yeah,
It's inherently like renowned for being a very difficult program.
that's
So, but
hard.
I think what's really great is that like there's a sense of camaraderie and you work, you have people you can work with. It's you turn to students, you turn to your TAs, you turn to like the professors, right? But I think going through both of those, you are like everything after that is easy. Genuinely, everything after that is easy. And I can say that with like utmost confidence. Considering now I have a pretty hard job too. um, but I think, right, like that's what it does for you. And no one in the world can compete with you on that end. Hopkins, I think depending on the major, as I kind of alluded to, depending on the major, it can be easier, it can be a little bit more challenging, but I think you're set up for it either way. Like it's either growing upon the skill set that you had before or beyond that. And I think from a preparedness about like Harvard Westlake did a fantastic job into preparing you to like apply to colleges and get into good colleges. I think like they have that well rounded and I owe a lot of that to the fact that I got into Hopkins. And then kind of Hopkins and beyond, because maybe I can speak to that a little bit more, is, although I'm not necessarily doing chemical engineering every day as much as I used to, I'm a little bit more on the business side, but my STEM background is still very much applicable in my job because we're making new materials. Like there's a lot of chemistry associated with that. But my problem solving capabilities that I've built out are super essential. And I think that is like the crux of what I do. Um, so I think that I've learned and still maintains. And I think Hopkins, which is not discussed, and I kind of want to do an ode to the Pava Center, they have an entrepreneurship network there. So if you want to like learn about building like businesses and they're like up and coming, they have grants, they have accelerator programs. So if you like are interested on that end of things, it exists. I went through it a little bit later and I wish I'd learned about it, but they are very supportive, even outside as someone that's graduated now, they're still very supportive. They're advisors that we're still very much in touch with. And I think they help you as much as they can, especially that side of the entrepreneurship ecosystem that is not mentioned as much, because I think Baltimore is not thought of as a startup ecosystem, but I think it's up and coming in a lot of ways. So I think, it prepared me in ways that are maybe more soft skill based. But I think that STEM background and knowledge is super essential here.
Yeah, a couple of things that I could kind of solidify what Alex Marie said. First of all, I would argue that Harvard Westlake is the hardest school that's a day school, right? I compare you guys, I'm from the East Coast. I don't think your competition is necessarily the other LA private schools. It's like the New England prep schools, it's like the New England boarding schools. And I think they have an advantage difficulty wise since they live there. Like you guys have to travel and I go back and forth at home, which technically is time that you could be spending doing your work. I got a pretty talented senior in here with me now, and I was telling him, like, to a man, a woman, to a person, everybody says Harvard Westlake was much harder than college. Like college was way easier. I think it's the fact that you guys are just prepared more for it, right? With that being said, let me get to these questions. The first one's from a student, the second one's from a parent, and then Chase, you can follow up with the other question also. The first one, and I guess you guys, I'm sure you have friends who live this life, even though you did not, and you can speak to your own experience. What do you think is the biggest difference between pre-med life at Hopkins as opposed to non-pre-med life?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think that a decent amount of people might think, oh, it's like research, but that's kind of a misnomer because I'd say there's some stat like like more than 40% of people on campus do research, and there's not 40% of the campus is pre-meds. Like I did research and I'm computer science. So I think everyone kind of does research, but in terms of differences, I think you do have more of a structured class set that you have to take for pre-med. There's just classes that everyone has to take. Like you have to take orgo, you have to take bio, you have to take physics, you have to take psych. Um, and then I think that the studying for the MCAT is definitely a big thing because you have this massive choice of when do you take it. Because if you don't do a gap year, then so if you like for I don't know how if you guys have thought about med school or not. But if you want to go to med school, you can either apply right out of college. And so you would graduate college and then in the fall start med school. You would need to have your MCAT done by the end of junior year or at latest the start of your senior year. Um, and so you need to be studying from like end of sophomore year on. So it's just like a very big time commitment. And even if you do a gap year, you're studying in your senior year. So that's just a very big time commitment compared to if you don't have that, you're probably using that time to find a job. And so I think that's like probably the biggest difference. But in terms of the actual life, like everyone intermingles. Like I have a lot of pre-med friends, like my girlfriend's pre-med, and we do all the same stuff. So I don't think that being pre-med versus not really changes your experience at Hopkins. It's really just you have certain things that you have to do like you have for any major.
Yeah, I'm gonna come in at the angle. So I had a lot of pre-med friends, and I think addressing the elephant in the room, which is the idea of competition and how that is like very prevalent in just pre-med, like I think at any campus you go to. And I've heard stories, and I think definitely they're like overblown at times and exaggerated for the sake of like telling a story. But like I think there's inherently a sense of competition that exists. Like in classes, I think this idea of like a curve and like that you're taking a lot of the same classes, you're following the same curriculum with a lot of these people, and at the end of the day, like there might be some sense of competition on when you're applying to like some of the same programs. And I think that can be felt in certain ways. I'm not going to say that's non-existent because I think that that happens across campuses. And I think I don't know how much Harvard-Westlake has changed in this regard, but I felt a sense of competition there too, where it's like you're applying to the same college or colleges and you're trying to figure it out, right? So I think that does exist. Like it's gonna happen because I think that the sense of environment and people feel like they have to look at each other's shoulders to do that. I don't think people are doing crazy nasty stuff to each other. I don't think like snake-like behavior is what's happening. At least I don't believe it is, and I didn't really hear anything crazy because I think there's still this sense of like camaraderie and support through some of that. But I do think you feel the pressure, like you feel the pressure to do more than your peer. You feel the pressure to be better in certain ways. So I think like that goes without saying, like that exists, and you need to just be mentally prepared for that because I think that will happen no matter what campus you go to. Hopkins is known for pre-med, and inherently you will be surrounded by students that are really great too. And I think that sense of pressure exists. And I think even outside of that, as someone who's in an engineering program, I think there's less of that competition that exists, but you're like, wow, like everyone here is really smart. Like I have to be also on my game, and I have to keep kind of exceeding that bar. But I think that's worth mentioning because,
Mhm.
that's sometimes not for certain people, that's not an ideal environment. Like that is you studying in that is not where people like thrive. Sometimes there's too much pressure, and I had friends that had to like face that reality and maybe switch majors or do something else. But I think like building that kind of social network of people I think is critical to that, but just be aware of it, like that's going to happen, and you need to mentally prepare for it. But I think making changes is not a bad thing. Don't see any shame in that.
Marie, you are all over question two. Literally, a gesture like cut to the chase. I know what you're getting at. And I was like, oh, it is. So I'm gonna ask question two anyway. And um it's a little bit different, but kind of the same with what you and Alex just addressed. At Hopkins, did you feel at Hopkins, even as non-pre-med majors, did you still feel that cutthroat, rigorous environment that Hopkins pre-med is known for? I think that's to your point, Marie. Some people, it's to the middle. Some people really don't like that. And then others, you all are Harvard, you all are Wolverines, some people thrive off of that, right? So really depends upon who you are. What you all see.
Yeah, yeah, I can go off of that, and I think that I kind of fall into that second category of like I work really well in kind of competitive environments. That's kind of just how I've been wired. But I don't think that competition is necessarily like in a widespread thing on campus. There's certainly pockets of it. I think, I'm kind of going into finance, and there are certain clubs on campus where there's only 30 kids in the club, and it's a very prestigious club to get into. And so, yeah, like you might be competing with some of your friends to get into that club, but if you don't get into the club, it's not like you're not friends with that person anymore. Like I didn't get into the two that I wanted, and I still got a great job, and I'm still friends with people that are in that club. So like there are certain times where you might feel competitive things, and there might be pressure, but I think that you're just gonna have that at any college you go to. Anything that you want, there's gonna be people that want it as well. And like that people aren't just going to be like, oh, here, take my spot. Like everyone wants to get what they want. So I think it's just something you deal with, but I've never felt an overwhelming sense of like, wow, there's so much pressure on me. These people don't want me to succeed. Which I think at times, like you mentioned, Marie, I think at times at Harvard-Westlake it can be like that because it's literally like, oh, this school has historically two spots. Like I need to be better than this person. It's not like that at all. So I think it's definitely way less pressurized than high school. I've never felt stressed like I did at Harvard-Westlake, is how I would say it.
Yeah, I maybe a slightly varying opinion, but I think along the same lines. Like this is an institution that is like known for academic challenge, and I think because of that you are surrounded by people that are also, like I mentioned earlier, like smart people. And I think sometimes you can feel an inherent like sense of pressure with that, right? Because you're like, oh man, like I I'm around people that are doing really well too. And as someone, and this is, I'm gonna be like totally vulnerable here, is like I had major imposter syndrome going through Hopkins, where I'm like, should I be here? Like, am I supposed to be here? Because people are here doing crazy stuff. And I'm like, man, I feel so far from that in a lot of ways. Which is not at all the case. I think there's some part that's like self-inflicted, which is like me feeling a sense of insecurity about my own accomplishments. But I think it is academically challenging. There are people doing really cool stuff at Hopkins and are excelling in a lot of ways, and are hard workers. I think it's very like people are hard workers, and I think because of that, like being in the engineering school, it's like challenging. People talk about like courses that you're like, oh man, no one is doing well in this class right now. But like you laugh it off. You're like, hey, it's okay. There's a curve. It exists. It supports you at the end of the day. But like I think that like exists across like engineering disciplines, is the idea that like everyone's not going to do well, but like you tried and you studied as hard as you could, and then ultimately like the curve will help you out, or like at least there was some sense of camaraderie through that, which is like everyone is trying to get through it. um I don't think I ever felt a sense of competition like in my engineering discipline as being a Chem BE, although it's like notoriously a very difficult major. But I think because it's so difficult, we're like we need to support each other and help out in any kind of way possible. Because like we're battling the tests, we're not battling ourselves, you know what I mean? And I think because of that, like I I I felt imposter syndrome, but I think that is because of the sense of like continued academic challenge, maybe just within my major itself. But I think I never felt that because other students were inflicting that on me, or making certain actions and choices that brought that upon me. I think it's a challenging institute, and you just have to be prepared for that sense of pressure. Like Alex, you can like super like thrive in that. I think I was somewhere in the middle, where it's like at points I would thrive, and at points like it was very difficult, especially when it came around to the me building my business and trying to take like grad school courses while building a business, which do not recommend anyone does that. But I think like you just have to be mentally prepared for the idea of that, and think through that process and ensure that maybe you can at least handle it, but or like try it, right? Try it and be ready for what you might have to face.
Yeah, I think some of those things that you and Alex said you didn't feel, which was great, right, are really a testament to you guys' generation. I think a lot of that kind of sort of lingering stuff really comes from my generation, the one before, stories of people, checking out library books and not returning them, right? Because other people needed them as a way to get ahead, or, I'm thinking of law school stealing previous tests from the prior years from the professor, so you know what the test is going to look like, but other people won't, right? I don't think you guys did that, Marie. I think you hit the nail on the head. I saw this when I was walking around MIT. They were like, we view it as us versus the test, not us versus each other. Or like, and I think that's really a really smart way to A, do better on the assignment, and B, not have your source of discontent and stress be up here, right? We have about 1 or 2 minutes left. We got some of the questions I won't get to, so parents and students, you'll have to ask Alex and Marie specifically. We've got an in-person senior year. The floor is yours. Question?
Yeah, so I came a little late. You might have already addressed this, but I was wondering if either of you had interacted with like study abroad programs at Johns Hopkins.
Question. Really good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I specifically haven't, just because I play baseball, and so I need to be there during fall when we have our fall workouts, and then spring is obviously my season. So I never did, but I have a decent amount of friends who have, and all of them absolutely loved it. I think it's something like 30% of the undergrads will do a study abroad program. So it's like pretty common on campus. And what I think might be unique to Hopkins specifically is that they also offer 1 month study abroad programs in January. So in between first semester and second semester, you can do a study abroad program. So I actually had a friend on the baseball team who, since he like couldn't study abroad for a whole semester, he did study abroad in January. He went to Barcelona and did like some Spanish classes in Barcelona, and he said it was like the best month of his life. So study abroad is definitely a thing at Hopkins. It doesn't really even have to be about your major. You can just like go and get a credit or two, and you can explore a really cool country. And I think they have it on like 4 or 5 different continents. Like you really have a pretty wide variety. So I think that's something that is cool about Hopkins.
Yeah, I also can't speak to this as much. I know they existed. I went to like sessions that discussed them, and they were like all across like multiple continents, as Alex said. So, I think the one thing you have to keep in mind is though, like, what is the constraint on your major? And I know that as like being a Chem BE in an engineering discipline, it was a little bit harder to imagine a semester that I could take off because I think the curriculum is a little bit more set and routine. I'm not saying it's not possible. You probably could figure it out. I mean, I finished my master's half a semester early, so I basically only did half a semester of my master's. So like there's ways around it. You just have to get creative, but like inherently that might be a constraint that you have to think about a little bit. But I have heard great things, and I think what Alex was talking about, this is the idea of intercession, which exists. It's just this like month that you can come to campus, and like some people take classes, and I've taken classes that were like in disciplines that I couldn't necessarily like dive into during the normal semester, which I think take advantage of that. You can also basically do a full-time like research internship in that time. So like the idea of like intercession, which I think is specific to Hopkins, is this time period between the fall and the spring where you have a month that people can come back to campus and you can take classes, you can do study abroad, you can do research, and you do whatever you want with your time, or you can just chill, which is also totally fair, and like hang out with your friends. But I think it's a really cool concept of that Hopkins has in place that I think has a lot of sense of flexibility and kind of growth wherever you want it to be.
we know Marie and Alex are both dedicated to HW and Hopkins, as we kept them 3 minutes over, and that we know their time is valuable. With that being said, as it's 2:58 p.m., do you have any questions?
No, I'm good.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Chase is good. Like I said, parents and students who submitted questions, Marie and Alex, their contact info is on the platform. Contact them there. That'll probably be the best way. If you want to email them, you can. I ask that you email me first so we can kind of sort of moderate the messages that they both get. Other than that, thank you so much, both of you. Alex Sheen, class of 22, Marie Eric, class of 18, both Hopkins alum, Marie's already in New York and Alex is headed there next year. So hopefully I'll see you both in my HW Works New York event next year. Right? There should be
I'll
no
be there.
excuses. Good. Thanks a lot, guys. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take
Thank you
care.
for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.